disappointing to come up a little bit short, but you said too many mistakes they took advantage of, and it really is the difference in the game. So could point to a lot of things, and any of them would have made a difference. So, but collectively, we just just got to do a better job here, and just perform a little bit better than we did tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is the aftermath of a 33-26 Patriots loss, and that is the Senator Phil Perry. Phil, this loss is lamentable because it was a team with a better record on the road in prime time, and there were old things that cropped up, penalties, did a long story on that, and there were new things that cropped up. Defensive breakdowns we hadn't seen against lesser teams, and special teams issues in coverage. And that basically wasted one of Mac Jones' better NFL performances. So what's the takeaway from this?
That to me is it, Tom. You've been waiting for a long time now to see a really competent performance from your offense and from your quarterback in particular. And you got both on Thursday night. Was it perfect? No. Did they have screw-ups of their own that were maybe relatively new? I guess. But it was a good day for Mac Jones. Over 9 yards per attempt, almost 400 yards through the air, 120 quarterback rating. People have been dying to see a game like that from Mac Jones in this passing game in particular. But they are a finger in the damn team right now, Tom, because as soon as the offense starts humming, the defense lets them down, and the special teams let them down, and the coaching, I think, let them down in this game. So that to me is the most disappointing part of this. If you're a member of this Patriots team right now, is that you finally got what you needed on one side of the ball and everything else sort of fell apart on you.
It's funny too, because going forward, I'm less concerned about the coaching and the play calling and more concerned about the situational stupidity, which probably traces back somewhat to coaching too. Because, for instance, and we can reel off a number of them, but when we talk about situational stupidity, prior to the half, Hunter Henry has every opportunity to get out of bounds. What's he going to get? 4 more yards? Get out of bounds. Mac Jones has an opportunity to throw the ball out of the back of the end zone. The Patriots could have saved themselves probably 40 more seconds and definitely run multiple more plays into the end zone. They settle for a field goal. Play calling, I said I'm not that down on it. Well, they try to reverse early on, which resulted in a negative play. And the Patriots had 35 negative plays in their past 3 games leading into this one. So it's, the situational stupidity of Pierre Strong, the situational stupidity of Trent Brown deciding to go for a cut block on the outside on a 3rd down play at a critical juncture that resulted in a Mac Jones sack. And there are many, many more, Phil.
There are. I mean, I look at the secondary because I think Matt Judon obviously gets a lot of credit for how well this defense had performed going into this game, and deservedly so. But the secondary has been really good. And for a lot of us, that was a huge concern coming into the season. No J.C. Jackson, no true quote-unquote #1 cornerback there. Jonathan Jones has had a great year. Jalen Mills has been fine. Jack Jones has exceeded expectations. But this week, Tom, you've got 3 15-yard penalties from that group, an unnecessary roughness from Miles Bryant, and 2 face masks from Jonathan Jones. You have 2 instances of defensive backs falling down, leading to big plays. Miles Bryant falls down, allows a 25-yard catch to Jalen Reagor. Kyle Duggar falls down, allows a touchdown catch to TJ Hawkinson. And that's just, to me, a group that you've been able to depend on for much of the year, and you couldn't on Thursday. And it wasn't even just those mistakes, Tom. A lot of those double team moments where we thought the Patriots would have multiple sets of eyes on Justin Jefferson, it was like they weren't even there at times. So that to me was a surprising development from this week.
Definitely. And you mentioned Matt Judon. I want to get to some sound from him, and we'll also talk more about Justin Jefferson. But how much of this was the Patriots defense going up against major league pitching as opposed to AAA or even AA pitching with the quarterbacks they had seen? Sam Ellinger, a couple of Zach Wilsons. Prior to that, Justin Fields, who's not going to light you up through the air. Mitch Trubisky, Jacoby Brissett. And we can debate all we want whether or not Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback or not, but he definitely knows what he's looking at. And you could see that early on and find the matchups and the places you wanted to go with the football. Do you enter that into the equation at all? And I guess it's whether you do or you don't. They're going to see some better quarterbacks, including the next one.
You have to look at this game and say, was this another situation, as was the case in 2019, as was the case last year, where this team is about to start seeing some real offenses quarterbacked by competent quarterbacks? And that's what Kirk Cousins is. He's competent. He's average. He might be slightly above average, but that's really who he is. It's who he's been for a long time. And you're going to see much better players at that position with similarly talented weapons. You know, Stephon Diggs, Tom, might not be Justin Jefferson, but Tyreek Hill is. And Stephon Diggs, if he's not Jefferson, he's pretty damn close. So I think this is a concern moving forward. You rattled off the list of quarterbacks that they've beaten. You know, Jared Goff, you want to throw him in there? Does that make you feel any better about this defense? I don't think so. The one thing I would say about Thursday night's performance in particular is that, okay, so the kickoff return, that goes for 7. Now you're down to 26 points allowed. They did score. The Vikings did score a touchdown off of that awful Pierre Strong penalty running into the kicker there. So maybe you could say, all right, well, yeah, they had 33 on the scoreboard, but really it was a 19-point performance by the defense, which at the end of the day, even against an average quarterback, isn't bad.
And it's funny because you say that, and that is a sign of optimism. It's a silver lining. But those mistakes, when we get back to the situational stuff I was talking about at the top, that's where I look at the coaching a little bit and the situational plays that are made on the field by the players. I can't fathom whether or not they're that far behind and poorly coached because they've been dealing with global issues. They're just not accustomed to being in 2-minute at the end of the half, trying to drive down and be in the red zone. We've lamented the fact that they're so bad in the red zone. They don't get in the red zone as often as they did tonight. So that's worth looking at. Also worth looking at is a comment made by Matthew Judon. And, well, here it is.
A couple calls, a couple plays, and it's going the other way. But it wasn't our night tonight. But I don't think we're far off, and I don't think that team kind of handled us. I think it was just a couple calls, a couple plays, a couple of this and a couple of that, and it could have been a different game. But we didn't make those plays, and we got to go on film and watch them and correct ourselves.
I get where he's coming from. There's a tendency of a player to be able to say to himself, hey, if we take care of our details, we'll be fine. We beat ourselves. They didn't beat us. And I guess that's, some solace in that. But also there's a minor lack of urgency because now the team is 6-5. And there's a greater than likely chance that they'll be 6-6 after next week. This was a game they could have had. From the outside looking in, is he showing a lack of urgency? Is there a lack of urgency for this team to accept that, hey, we'll get in the film room, we'll fix it?
I don't know if they have a lack of urgency. I don't know if they have an urgency problem, but I had 2 issues with that commentary from Matt Judon. And number one is that, they didn't handle us. You kind of did get handled by an offensive line that allowed 7 sacks to the Cowboys just a week ago. And on 60% of Kirk Cousins' dropbacks a week ago, he was pressured. And yet the Patriots end up with 1 sack in this game, Tom, a handful of quarterback hits. And now I do think part of that was a result of some good coaching on the Vikings side of the ball. A lot of short passes, a lot of plays and instances where Kirk Cousins is getting the ball out of his hand quickly so Judon and others can't get to him. But that's where I thought the Patriots would win the game tonight, and they didn't. And so that was issue number one. The other issue was just even Judon referencing the officiating. I think they made enough mistakes, Tom, in this game that they shouldn't be talking about the officiating. Now, to play devil's advocate, I do kind of get it. If you felt like Kyle Duggar got held on the kickoff return for a touchdown, that's 7 points. If you felt like Hunter Henry really caught that touchdown pass, and I think there's an argument to be made there, that's 4 points because he only ended up getting a field goal there. So that's 11 points in a 7-point game. I just wonder if that's how the team is looking at it, and if they are, if that's a good thing. I don't think it is.
Yeah, and throw in the Mac Jones face mask that was missed, and I guess both those Jonathan Jones face masks, 30 yards worth of them. When you look at that, yeah, they were penalties, and absolutely the Miles Bryant flag was there, but at least in the Jonathan Jones, that's in the moment against a superior player, league-wide, not just to Jonathan Jones, who's had a very good year. I didn't mean to slight you there, Jonathan, because I think you've been a very good player. The bottom line is there's so many penalties, and there's so many negative plays. Get this number. Digest this for a moment. I added it up after the Pierre Strong penalty. The Patriots have had 40 penalties in the past 6 games. They had in the past 3 games, 35 negative plays. That's sacks, negative runs. Doesn't even include penalties. They had a couple sacks at the end of the game tonight, Kendrick Bourne stuff. So it's around 43, 44, whatever. Basically, they're close to 80 plays in the last 6 games. And that's not even including some of the negative plays. So it's probably close to 90, 95 negative plays in the last 6 games between penalties and plays from on the offensive side that didn't gain yards. That's mind-boggling, Phil. That's more than a game's worth of penalties and negative plays. And that does go back to situational football, and it goes back to coaching, and it goes back to where these players are going to be going forward. And going forward, you mentioned they're going to see Stephon Diggs. After that, they'll see DeAndre Hopkins. After that, they'll see Hunter Renfrow most likely and Devontae Adams. After that, Tyreek Hill. After that, Jamar Chase. Prior to that, whatever. You get the point. Here's Bill Belichick and Devin McCourty talking about dealing with them high-flying receivers.
He's not the only good receiver we're going to see this year. Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah, no doubt about it.
We got another guy that's pretty good next week, so we gotta look at what we can do to better handle a guy like that. Between Diggs and Gabe Davis next week, it'll be a very similar challenge to what we got tonight with Jefferson. So we play like that against number 1 guys. It's gonna be a long year.
I'm such an apologist sometimes after these games. And Bill said it a little bit in the postgame too. The other guys are getting paid too. And you look at a Justin Jefferson or Devontae Adams, and you say they're going to get their 6 catches for 70 yards or worse. Do you just chalk it up to that and swallow hard and deal with it?
Well, if it was 6 catches for 70 yards, that'd be one thing. It was 139 yards and a touchdown. I mean, you can't have it, Tom. I don't care if it's Randy Moss in his prime. And by the way, Justin Jefferson just surpassed Randy Moss for most receiving yards in the first 3 seasons of his NFL career, and he's not even really close to done with his 3rd season yet. So this guy is spectacular. He is a stud. He will be for a long, long time. I don't have a problem with him, Tom, beating the Patriots when the Patriots defense was set up. For instance, the long catch down the sideline that the broadcast played again and again and again, where they had an east-west, quote-unquote, east-west double team on Justin Jefferson, and he went north-south, and he just ran through it. He split it. He ends up catching a deep pass down the seam for a big gain from Kirk Cousins. I don't have a huge issue with that because that's a great player making a great play. You were ostensibly where you were supposed to be, and he just beat you. Tip your cap. The ones that I have a little bit of an issue with are the touchdown catch early in the game, where it was clear that somebody was supposed to be doubling Justin Jefferson, and somebody may have had their eyes on Justin Jefferson aside from John Jones, who's tracking him all the way across the field. But John Jones is tracking him all the way across the field, probably waiting for one of his teammates to step up and actually double team the guy. And it never happens. Is it because of scheme? Is it because somebody fell asleep at the wheel? I'm not sure, but it felt like there were multiple instances of the Patriots getting out-coached. Vikings offense versus Patriots defense, because they had to have had a plan to have more people on Justin Jefferson than they actually ended up getting on him. I think the Vikings did a great job. They used some tempo. I don't think the Patriots were really able to set up their double team calls, maybe at times because they were rushed to the line and maybe they had to drop into sort of a base zone. I'm not sure what it was. We'll have to watch the game again and look at it more closely. But that was an instance, just how they handled Justin Jefferson and how he handled them. That was an instance of the Vikings out-coaching the Patriots, which surprised me. Again, I thought the Patriots had a lot of time to prepare for this game because coming out of their bye, they had the Jets. They were already familiar with the Jets. They should have been okay on that coaching front, and they weren't.
Phil, Mac Jones' sophomore campaign has generated plenty of conversation here in New England, hasn't it? When we look at this, he has the high ankle sprain he suffers against Baltimore after a proficient game that ended with 3 picks and no touchdowns. He's down for 3 weeks, comes back against the Bears, throws a pick, gets basically benched. Most of the region, or at least a significant and loud portion of it, was wondering out loud whether or not Bailey Zappi was a better player, a better fit, the guy the Patriots should turn to. Now that Mac Jones has been back for Jets, 4 games, I don't know if he's thrown a pick. Tried to, but he hasn't. This performance in prime time, throwing for 382. Now, over the last 2 games, I believe he's 35 for 42 for close to 400 yards in the past 2 games. Has he allayed concerns that were rampant about his abilities?
I think he should, to a degree, especially after this game, Tom. This had to have been his best game of the season. And we saw accurate Mac Jones. We saw push the ball down the field Mac Jones. That touchdown to Nelson Aguilar I thought was a great throw. He had another one down the middle to Nelson Aguilar that sort of got them on the doorstep. He had a pass to Devontae Parker along the sideline. Great,
I like that one.
Great throw and catch. Little toe tap on the sideline to make sure that one was completed. I actually thought his 4th down throw to Nelson Aguilar late in the game wasn't bad. And if Aguilar actually had continued running and not stopped his route,
I thought the same thing. What are we
that
diving
might have been
for,
completed. So we're on the same wavelength there. He did everything that we saw him do last year when he was at his best. And so if he can keep that up, yes, those concerns should be long-term allayed. It wasn't perfect, right? The clock management at the end of the first half, you mentioned Hunter Henry. He had an issue with one of those plays as well, where he just slides and has to take a timeout, has to burn a timeout there as opposed to throwing the ball away. But real improvement and big picture, again, a little bit of a silver lining. It's a difficult loss. You don't want to lose that one. You might be on the outside looking in when it comes to the playoff contention. But if your quarterback is back on track, and this is who he is and who he can be moving forward consistently, is that not more important?
100%. It really is. And the amount of time we spend on our shows, on this podcast, on digital, writing stories about whether or not Mac Jones is an answer or not, and you and I have both been in that, it's the least of your concerns. That is the big picture question that we all agree. If you don't have that, then what do you have? They do have that. Do they have Mahomes? Do they have Rodgers? Do they have Brady? Do they have... You all get the point. But they have a player who won't cost them and can help them win games, as opposed to being an anchor. Why in God's name were the Patriots able to protect him so well tonight?
Well, I think part of it was scheme, just as the Vikings were able to scheme up some pretty good protection for Kirk Cousins by getting it out of his hands quickly, having him throw short. Mac Jones threw 10 of his passes, of his 39 attempts, 10 of them were targeted to players behind the line of scrimmage. So over a quarter of his throws did not travel beyond the line of scrimmage. Yet he still mixed in enough deep passes for his average intended air yards to be over 8 yards per throw. So that's pretty good. That's much better than it had been, Tom, in the previous 3 games, where, again, the air yards part of his game, it was absolutely dink and dunk. It was less than 5 yards per attempt in 2 of the last 3 games. So that part changed. I think this was a good game for Matt Patricia as far as that goes. He showed that he can adjust to the opponent. Hey, the Jets have a great front. They don't have a great offense. They might not be able to score against us. Let's play it a little bit conservative here. Let's not lose the game offensively. Tonight, in a better matchup and better conditions, they did push the ball down the field a little bit more, and obviously they had some success. So maybe some positivity on the coordination front as well.
You mentioned the playoff picture. Patriots are 6-5. They are in the 8th spot. These games to be played on Sunday. So there will be more reshuffling and reshuffling and reshuffling as the season progresses. But next up, it's the Vikings. Then the 2-game trip out to, is that the West Coast, Las Vegas?
Bills,
Arizona?
Bills,
Well,
and then it's Arizona, Vegas.
Yeah, Bills, Arizona, Vegas. I said that. I said Buffalo.
You said
Phil.
Vikings. You said Vikings, Arizona.
Oh, they're not going to play them again, are they? No. All right, so Bills.
Unless it's the Super Bowl.
Don't count. Don't count them out. Beat that as it may. This is a step up in quarterbacking when they go against Josh Allen, regardless of what we saw. Their life and death with the Lions. Answer that question for me, actually. Are we overrating the Bills? Are the Bills and the Vikings, who the Vikings beat, can the Bills be had?
Oh, see, the Vikings lost to the Bills about a half dozen times before they actually won that game. So I'm not putting the Vikings necessarily in the Bills conversation, but the Bills might be overrated. I would entertain that conversation because they're not who they were last year. Their quarterback's not who they were last year. Number one, he's banged up. Number two, he's making weird decisions. He's running more. He's taking more chances through the air. And maybe those things are stemming from the fact that he's a little bit banged up. And maybe it's playing with his mind a little bit, or maybe he feels as though he has to change his game a little bit based on some of the things that he's dealing with physically. But they are still very good. They're doing things that I think good teams do, which is they're not playing up to their standard, but they're still finding a way to win games for the most part. And I think once they get a little bit healthier on the defensive side, especially, their safeties have been banged up all year. I think you're going to see them play a more consistent brand of football. But I still have them, Tom, maybe not in the top tier of the league. There might be one team in the top tier of the league. It's the Kansas City Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have the Bills in the next tier.
So the Bills are in the next tier. Will there be more tiers next Thursday as the Patriots and Bills square off? We're going to find out. We're going to get deep into that conversation because, again, it's a Thursday night game. So this Thursday is actually Sunday. Tomorrow is Monday. Bill likes to do this. Bill also likes to direct the media to make sure that it gets on the record from the officials exactly what they saw on particular plays. Here's Bill when asked about the Hunter Henry touchdown. This is my first moment of giddiness because I just was amused by this.
Why don't you guys go to the officials with your pool reporter and ask them about the play and let them explain it to you? Right? Like, isn't that what you do? Thank you.
All right, so Phil, that was my first moment of glee. This is a new segment. Moment of glee was that. My second moment of glee was the downfield throw to Devontae Parker. I thought that was outstanding. Great to see Mac Jones be able to set his feet, step into the ball, throw it downfield to a wide receiver who is doing what they brought him here to do, which is what N'Keal Harry could not do. And also just the red zone, even though it wasn't a catch, allegedly, results for Hunter Henry tonight. Those are my 3 moments of glee if you're a New England Patriots fan.
Yeah, I think the Hunter Henry progress or involvement has to be reason for glee if you're a Patriots fan. Because, Tom, this might end up being, and I know you say the Patriots barely get into the red zone, which is true. I understand that. They don't move the ball well enough to be a consistent red zone threat. But you would think that that might actually in some way help their percentages when they do get into the red zone, if they are experiencing success there, just because there's not a lot of numbers there. And so there's a lot of volatility. They might end up 32nd out of 32 teams in terms of red zone success once week 12 has come and gone here. Because again, they go 0 for 3. I believe coming into this week, they were 31st in the NFL in red zone percentage. So I give you credit for including Hunter Henry's performance today in your glee category, because you're going to need that guy moving forward if you're going to elevate that thing and be a team that contends for anything, because you can't be last in the league in red zone offense if you're going to be a good team.
I have moments of agitation as well, and I'd like you to weigh in on these. My 3 moments of agitation. First was the Kendrick Bourne reverse. Stop going backwards. He's not Deion Branch, and he's not going to run through everybody. He's not the guy that I thought he was, okay? He's not Deebo Samuel. That's my first moment of agitation. Second moment of agitation, everybody had it. It was Pierre Strong running into the kicker. That results in a first down on a 4th and 4. Bam! Next thing you know, the Vikings are in the end zone. And finally, it's the Trent Brown cut block on a pivotal 3rd down. You just rarely see a cut block thrown. And in a moment like that, it's an all or nothing move. It's like a center fielder diving at a sinking liner. If you don't make it, he's on third. Phil, your reaction. Then we're going to button this thing up.
I understand your agitation with that third one especially because that offensive line had exceeded expectations up until that moment. They had played a heck of a game. And it sounded like defensive players were going over to the offensive huddle when they were on the sidelines and special teams was on the field and they say, hey, great job out there, boys. Because, you have James Ferentz in there for David Andrews. Cole Strange has been up and down the last month or so. But to me, he did not seem like a problem at all tonight. Yodny Kajust on the right side. How many times did they mention him tonight? Did they mention him at all? Because I didn't think he was a problem. That was the play, and it was one of the deciding plays of the game. That was the play that really kind of soured that offensive line performance for me. And I'm with you on the reverse. That was maybe my least favorite call of the day. But close to that, Tom, was at the end of the first half. I understand it was just a shot play into the end zone, handful of seconds left before you go into the locker room. But if you're going to throw a fade into the end zone, why is it to Kendrick Bourne? Why isn't it to Devontae Parker, who had just made an incredible catch along the sideline right before that, I believe? So that was a head scratcher for me too.
And it's a 5'8" corner too, as was mentioned. If you're going to throw that, and again, easy for me to backseat drive an NFL quarterback when I'm sitting in a green room, but a little higher. Okay. So it's either he catches it or nobody does. But again, that would be something that a biased observer could lament and say, where's the flag? Going to be a lot of that coming up Friday into Saturday, all weekend long until there's a new slate of games to take your mind off it and you start getting ready for the Buffalo Bills, folks, because remember, this Thursday is Sunday, and today, when you're listening to it, it's Monday. Happy Monday. It's really Friday. See ya.